or Beth Green, otherwise known as Granny Rocks. And tonight I'm going to talk about a favorite topic of many of us. Maybe not favorite to talk about, honestly, but something that we do, which is about excuses, what they are they bad, why do we make them, and what to do about that. So in the meantime, I would like to introduce you to Sweet Baby James, who's going to introduce our show.
Yes, thank you, Granny Beth. This is James Maynard, otherwise known as Sweet Baby James, and welcome to Granny Rocks, where Granny shares with us her wisdom, her wit, and her very uncommon sense every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Pacific. So stay tuned, and now over to Granny.
Well, first of all, I want to encourage you to comment. We are live, so we can chat. You say something, we say something, and we can talk about it on the air. And if you can't join us live or you can't comment live, please comment later. Elizabeth said hello and sent some caring, and
Hi,
Catalina
Elizabeth.
said good evening, and I'm so glad to hear from both of you because now I know we are broadcasting on the Granny Rocks channel, right? Last week I screwed up, and I'm not going to make any excuses. I broadcast on the Beth Green channel. Well, I was on an iPad and we were in a motor. What can I say? There's always an excuse, right? So, okay.
Sometimes there's a reason.
Well, that's exactly the point, isn't there? So, what are excuses? So let me go over the topic again. It's what are excuses? Are they bad or are they good? Why do we make them and what should we do about it? So I want to start out by saying, that Tracy said hi and sent love and caring and was going to send that back. Hello, Tracy. So an excuse is a reason that we give for a behavior in order to hide the real reason for our action or lack of action. Richard says good evening and send us a prayerful namaste kind of thing. Good evening, Richard. So Blanca said hello, Beth. Hola, Blanca. Wonderful to see you all. Oh, I'm so excited to see everybody. Really. So I'm going to say that again. An excuse is a reason we give in order to hide the real reason for our action or our lack of action. So, for instance, I'm going to give you a very simple example that we'll all, laugh about, right? This couldn't be me, of course. No, someone else. For years, I've said that I want to write a novel, but I don't. So why is that? Well, my computer broke and I can't afford a new one. But then I don't want an old one, right? Because that wouldn't be right. Or I don't like that one, or whatever it is. Or I couldn't use a typewriter. No, this is a good excuse. Now, Ali said good morning, and he said something in Turkish, and there's no translation. Oh, no, there is a translation. And it says, good morning to two beautiful-hearted people. May life be your best. Thank you so much,
Same
Ali.
to you, Ali.
Same to you, yes. So I can afford other things, but for some reason I just can't seem to afford the computer. Now, excuse number 2 option, and there's so many, right? My computer broke and I just don't have time to fix it. Blanca sent us a beautiful flower and Ali sent us an image of some kind of a sweet-looking animal sending us a heart. Thank you. I just don't have time to fix it. Now, I have time to do other things, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. My wife says that my writing sucks, and I've lost my confidence. Now, is that a reason or is that an excuse? Well, I would say that. These are all excuses, right? Because, what is the real reason? We're going to get to that later. And so now I can blame her, which is really an important part of excuses. It's not just good enough to have an excuse. Excuses always have blame associated. You either blame circumstances like the ones I've got, or you blame the boss for not giving you a raise, or or you're blaming your life, your children make noise. Oh yes, here's another good one. My children make noise at night. I just can't focus. Right? And for some reason I can't seem to close the door. Or tell them not to come in. Or my children have grown up and they've gone away and I'm so distraught that I'm grieving, and that's been going on for at least 20 years, and then I'm too busy. But I do have time to watch the sports recaps, or I have time to watch political debates, or read about politics, or catch up on the news. I have time for that, but I don't have time for my novel. Here's another one. I think you'll enjoy this. The dog ate the first chapter, and I can't face another tragedy.
Sounds like the homework excuse that wasn't
exactly.
brought in.
Yes. I was so traumatized by the dog eating the book, the first chapter. Now, of course, in my world, if the dog or the computer ate the first version, that means that it stank and that I should do it again. I always take things, instead of being a block, as a directional signal. Something about that was no good. Okay, now, there are a lot of examples of people making excuses. I lost the vote because anything but that people didn't want
I was late for
me.
the appointment because.
I was late for the appointment because. That guy didn't choose me because. And so on. Now, are excuses bad? Well, yes. Well, you could say, no, they're not bad. If you're going to kill yourself, if you look at the right reason, the real reason, then maybe the excuse is a good thing. Okay, I have the excuse. I've given it to myself, and I'm not going to kill myself. Amy says, hi, Beth and James. I was just making an excuse at work today. Perfect timing, Amy. But what is bad about it is they stop us, or they can stop us from self-inquiry. The self-inquiry would be, why am I making this excuse? And if I get an answer to that question, I might actually have an idea about what to do about it. Oh, I'm making an excuse because my writing sucks and I don't want to face that. Well, maybe I can do something about that. Maybe I should take a creative writing class. You know what I mean? Or maybe I should do more writing, and instead of starting with a novel, start with a one-page something or other that I can work on. And that, you see what I'm saying? So if you don't make excuses and you really look at the reason, you may actually discover something that you can do something about.
Well, I'd just like to say here that excuses are a way to just stop the inquiry right then and there.
Exactly.
If I have a good excuse for being late, no more inquiry.
That's right.
We don't have to ask, gee, why didn't I leave earlier? No.
Oh, no, certainly not. Certainly not.
It was the traffic.
Right, and of course it's the same traffic that it was yesterday. Now, of course there are times that it's a real reason. The real reason is the real reason. It has to do with why I actually didn't do it, rather than the story that I'm telling myself and others. Now, another problem with excuses is that they involve blame. As I mentioned before, I could blame the traffic, I could blame this. But they might also ruin our relationships. Because if I consistently blame you, and it's your fault, I'm going to hold a resentment against you, and that is not a good foundation for a loving relationship. So excuses can have very, very high costs. Now, there may be other reasons, but I'm just throwing out a couple of ideas because I want you to think about this, right? And I also want to point out that some people will say, well, just give up your excuses and just do it. Maybe that isn't always the right answer. So we'll get to that in a minute. Why do we make excuses? I have one major answer for this. Because we can't face the real reason. It's just too difficult. Amy said, self-inquiry is a great idea. Like at work, I could have done something earlier, but instead said why I wasn't able to. So instead, I could admit that I love to put things off at the time. Very good. Let's do that self-inquiry dance. Okay, I want to get back to the Great American Novel for a moment. Let's say the reason I'm making an excuse is because my writing does not meet my hopes and expectations. And I can't face the disconnect between my fantasy about who I am and what I'm capable of and the reality. So I can't face that real reason because for some reason my ego or my heart have gotten all wrapped up in that I could write the Great American Novel if I only tried. There was a joke when I was young that, because I grew up in a family which really emphasized music. Not a wealthy family, but a family that loved music. And they said, well, the joke was, if I had only practiced, I could have been as good as Jascha Heifetz on the violin or, Horowitz on the piano. I'm dating myself, of course. Now, another reason we can't face the real reason is that there is a cognitive dissonance. In other words, something that my brain just cannot wrap itself around about who I am. Now, the first one was about that too. My writing doesn't meet my hopes and desires. I can't go and get into a relationship because my capacity is not going to bring me, Prince Charming. But it also could be I'd rather play ball, bake a cake, or have a relationship. And I don't want to admit that. I want to believe that I really, really want to write the Great American Novel. Maybe when I was 17, I wanted to write the Great American Novel. Maybe as I aged and matured, I discovered that I really enjoy baking or playing ball or relating. But I can't let go of the old self-concept, right? I'm the kind of guy who really wants to do this. But when I look at my behavior and I see that I'm not doing it, I might have to face, if I don't use an excuse, that maybe I don't want it that much. And what does that say about me? Well, where did I get the idea that I have to? See, what does it say about me is like some self-concept that we've developed. Are you guys relating to what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You are?
All too well.
All too well. So why do I make excuses instead of looking at the reasons? This is the why part. Because the reasons seem too painful for me to admit. And because I've changed and I can't face that. There is a disconnect between who I am and who I have been or thought I was. Blanca said, bless Beth and James. Gracias, Blanca.
Gracias.
Thank you. I hope this means that you're really enjoying this topic and really, hopefully, relating to it. So, what to do?
Indeed.
Well, as I said before, some people just say, just do it! Like, excuses are terrible, and, you can do better, and all of that. Well, maybe I can't do better. Maybe the excuse really, is just covering up a real reason. For example, maybe I wanted to be a painter, but I went blind. And I'm not one of those amazing people who can do these extraordinary things like paint without seeing what I'm painting. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe there's somebody like that, but maybe that's not me. So that's not an excuse. That's a reason. I've gone blind. That's a reason. Sometimes I can just admit that I've changed, that I can reevaluate my values, that maybe there was a time when it was really important to me to be a great writer. Maybe the reason that I needed to be a great writer wasn't so hot anyway. Maybe I was trying to prove something to somebody, to myself, to my father, to the world. So maybe it's better to not just do it. Maybe it's better to say, I'd rather play ball or bake cakes or have a relationship, because I actually value that more. Can I let go of that self-concept? Can I become who I am now? Can I invest in a real future? So I say, just admit when you're making excuses. Now, do we know when we're making excuses? I have a feeling that we usually have a glimpse if our egos aren't screaming that loud, trying to make it look like, it's something else. In fact, the more hysterically we protest, probably the more likely we're into some kind of excuse. So I think we can often feel or sense that we're making excuses, especially if we've been making the same excuse year after year after year under changing circumstances, right? Maybe I should admit I'm making excuses. Maybe I should go into the inquiry instead. And maybe I should make peace with who I really am.
I'd like to add something here that
Good.
I think is another dimension for myself and perhaps a lot of other people. And that is, I tend to make excuses in order to avoid feeling shame about not having measured up to what I thought I should be able to do.
Exactly.
We all have grown up with a certain amount of judgmentalism directed at us, criticism or punishment for misbehavior, not behaving properly, etc. And so right away we start making excuses to avoid negative judgments about us or
That's
our
right.
own judgments about ourselves. And then with that, we become excuse generators in all the different aspects of our lives. And I've certainly seen that with myself.
That's exactly right. That goes back to, why do we make excuses? Because my writing doesn't meet my hopes and desires, and I don't want to be disappointed in myself. So that's really good.
Or I'm not a good enough father, or I'm not a good enough relationship partner,
Right.
or I'm not good enough in my work.
Right. So maybe we should just admit, I'm not that great. Oh, Richard sent us a carnation. Thank you. Amy says, please tell me that I should make a second CD recording. My only one is 1993. I make excuses that I don't have time, but the reality is that I'm not interested in recording a new one. Excellent, Amy.
Good one.
That's it. I don't wanna. I wanna play ball or bake cakes or have a relationship or focus on something else. Why not allow ourselves to be who we are? To say, yeah, I really enjoy doing this, but it'll never be at a professional level. But I'm going to do it anyway because I like it. Or I don't enjoy doing it anymore. There's really other things that have come to the fore in my life that have taken on the value that I used to attribute. So I am with you, Amy. You don't have to make a second CD recording. And you don't have to make any excuses. You can just say, I don't want to. I don't have the energy. I wasn't really that thrilled with the first one. I don't want to practice that hard. I don't want to work that hard. Anyone else like to share something before we call it a night? I really want you to think about this show very seriously. What is it that you think you're making excuses about? Who are you blaming, or what? Are these excuses stopping you from the self-inquiry that could either lead you to overcoming the excuses and doing something better, or that could lead you to a new self-honesty and realization? I say just admit the excuses, go into the inquiry, and make peace with who you really are. So don't forget to like the show, to love the show, to comment. If you didn't comment while we were live, you can always comment later. We love that. I will always come and answer your comments when I can. And please share this because people, oh my God, people have so many excuses. This would really be a good show to share. And follow our page and come back next week at Wednesday at 6:30. And either don't come because you're not home from work yet, or come because you can and you don't want to make excuses anymore because you want to interact live. And just be at peace with yourself. There is no concept of ourselves that is more important than who we are and loving that person. And by the way, tomorrow night, Thursday, at 7 p.m. Pacific time, every Thursday, I play Dreams of Peace, improvisational piano music. Don't give me any excuse. You can watch the music anytime, and you can watch our show anytime.
You can watch and you can hear it.
You can. So we really enjoyed being with you tonight. We love our audience. We appreciate all the support.
Thank you so much for coming. It's been great to share with you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.